Apprehend God in all things, for God is in all things. Every single creature is full of God and is a book about God. Every creature is a word of God. If I spent enough time with the tiniest creature, even a caterpillar, I would never have to prepare a sermon. So full of God is every creature. It's by Meister Eckhart, a 13th century German mystic and scholar. Take a moment just to reflect on that. Every single creature is full of God, can tell us about God, can reveal God to us. Think about your closest relationships, the people represented in those relationships. They reveal God to you. Think of the animals you encounter during your day, pets or wildlife. They reveal God to you. Think of people who influence you. They reveal God to you. Caterpillars. Do you even know how many times I've talked about someone being in the goo? Like I'm talking about the way a person is in between a caterpillar and a butterfly. They're in the middle of a huge transition, totally untethered. It's a confusing and frustrating and isolating place that leads to something better. They're in the goo. Caterpillars reveal God to us. Every single creature is full of God. I wonder what might shift in our lives and in our world if we looked for God in each other, if we honored God in the people we love, in the people who annoy us, in the wildlife we encounter, in the world around us. Don't you think our capacity to be curious, creative, and compassionate would increase? That thought makes me want to lean into this idea and explore it more, and I hope it does the same thing to you, because that's what we're going to do today. We're wrapping up our series based on the book by Richard Peace called Noticing God. We've discussed the ways we experience God in mystical encounters and in ordinary life. We've looked at how God shows up in a still small voice and through the power of community and the church. And today we're going to be talking about how God shows up in creation, in culture, and in creativity. Now, if I had to guess, people are going to generally fall into one of two categories. Like either you hear this and you're like, oh, that's like a step too far. Like that's a little much. Or you're thinking, finally, nature is the one place I ever really notice God. Wherever you're at in that, I want to provide some handles for us for this content. There are a few different paths to noticing God in creation and culture and creativity. The first is the way of effect. How does what you're seeing affect you? When you see an amazing sunrise and you just have to stop and stare. When you hike for a view and then you just take it all in. When you have the right gear, but the air is cold and the ground is still and a hush falls over the world and everything seems brighter with a fresh coat of snow. A piece of art takes your breath away. The colors or shape of a sculpture evoke a feeling. A song moves us to tears. We encounter God in the way creation, culture, or creativity affects us. The second is the way of intellect. This is what happens when we seek to probe the deeper mysteries of creation, and then we bump up against the Creator. When we consider the geological processes that led to the formation of mountains, or the ways that certain materials mix together to make certain pigments and paints. It's when we consider the ways that people make meaning out of life together. We look into the mysteries and glimpse the Creator. And the third is the way of the artist. This is the way in which the very act of creation puts us in touch with the Spirit, so that both the artist and the viewer are moved beyond themselves. This is the restoration you experience when you take time to create. It's the way you begin to notice beauty as you create it. It's the way you experience God's love as you express what's inside through art. Now, many of us experience all three of these things. Some of us more naturally experience one over the other. And I think that what you naturally experience can change over time. There might be seasons of your life when the way of intellect comes really naturally, and other times when you begin to engage the Spirit as an artist. So let's stop here for a chat question. As you reflect on these three paths to noticing God, the way of effect, of intellect, of the artist, which one or ones resonate with you? Take a minute and talk about it.